It doesn't begin with betrayal. It begins with a pattern so subtle it looks harmless. A text reply that takes a little too long. A glance at the phone during a quiet dinner. A slightly bolder photo in her stories, just for fun. And you don't react, because you trust her. She's yours. You're together. There's no need to panic over something so small, right? But here's the truth that hits too late for most men. Cheating never starts with action. It starts with attention. Not the attention she gives you, but the kind she starts craving elsewhere. And the most dangerous thing? You don't even notice it, because on the surface, everything still looks fine. She still hugs you goodnight. She still replies to your messages. She still calls you my love. But inside, something is shifting. And it usually starts when she makes one simple habit part of her emotional rhythm, giving pieces of her attention to the world outside your relationship. It's a habit that seems innocent, but in reality, it opens a door she may not even realize she's walking through until she's already halfway gone. The moment she starts relying on external validation to feel emotionally alive, the connection between you starts to fade. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because she's outsourcing the part of her that used to be exclusive to you. Maybe it starts with social media. She used to post things you'd talk about later together. Now, she posts more selfies. She notices who reacts. She might not say it, but you see it. How her eyes flicker toward the screen when someone new leaves a comment. When you bring it up, she says, "It's not that deep. Don't be dramatic." But you're not imagining things. You're picking up on something primal, the shift from intimacy to performance, from presence to attention-seeking. You don't have to catch her flirting in DMs to know something's off. You feel it in how quickly she laughs at another guy's message and how rarely she laughs with you now. You see it in how she dresses up more for her feed than for your dates. In how she says, "I just like looking good for myself," but her mirror is always an audience. And here's the part no one wants to admit. This doesn't make her evil. It makes her human. Every person wants to feel desired, wanted, seen. But when that desire starts to outweigh loyalty, when her mood depends more on reactions from strangers than conversations with you, you're no longer her emotional center. You're background noise to the main act. And what's most dangerous is this. She may not even know it. She's not setting out to cheat. She's not plotting behind your back. But she's already building an emotional world that doesn't need you in it. And if you're not needed emotionally, it's only a matter of time before you're not needed physically either. It's not about being jealous. It's about being conscious. Conscious of when the bond becomes blurred. Conscious of when the intimacy that once lived in your shared world has been replaced by one-sided exposure. Because the habit doesn't start with another man. It starts with the algorithm, with the phone, with the feeling of, "I want to be seen again." And once that feeling becomes her favorite drug, no amount of love will be enough to compete with the hit she gets from someone else's eyes. So you ask, isn't that normal now? Isn't everyone online? Maybe. But just because it's common doesn't make it healthy. A relationship doesn't break from one big event. It breaks from small fractures over time. And this habit, is often the first crack. There's a moment she starts to feel it. That tiny pulse of independence. The thrill of being wanted without doing anything wrong. She's not cheating. She's not lying. She's just feeling alive. More alive than she has in a while. And that sensation, it's addictive. Because it gives her something no relationship can sustain forever. Novelty. Freshness. The rush of unfamiliar energy. And when a woman hasn't built a strong inner compass, she starts drifting toward what feels exciting over what feels secure. It might be something small. She posts a photo and gets a DM. She doesn't reply, but she reads it twice. Maybe she smiles. Maybe she even shows a friend, laughing, "Look what this guy said." You're not in the story, but you're in the background. She still comes home to you, still shares a bed with you, but something about that DM stuck in her mind. Not because it meant anything, but because it reminded her she could still pull attention from the world. And attention is power, especially for someone who's starting to feel emotionally flat in her relationship. Not because you're not enough, but because she's not engaged with herself anymore. She doesn't bring depth, so she seeks distraction. She confuses external interest with internal value. And now, with every new glance, every message, every "hey stranger" in her inbox, she feels like she's still got it. That's not about connection. That's about control. You'll start to feel this when her energy shifts. Not dramatically, but consistently. She becomes less emotionally available, but still physically close. She cuddles you, but checks her phone. She laughs, but not at your jokes. She says she's just tired, but you feel it. Her presence is no longer rooted in the relationship. It floats somewhere outside, like her attention is on standby for whatever lights up next. One guy I spoke with, Adrian, said he couldn't explain why he felt insecure. She never did anything wrong, he told me. But I started to feel like I was losing her, and I couldn't even point to why. He tried being more attentive, more helpful, more romantic, but nothing changed. Because the problem wasn't between them, it was behind her screen, where a dozen little emotional triggers waited for her every time she got bored, sad, or restless. This is how modern cheating begins, not in hotel rooms or secret rendezvous, but in micro-hits of emotional escape, in building a parallel world where she can flirt with desire without consequences. And once that door is open, it doesn't matter if she walks through it tomorrow or next month, the distance between you will already feel real. And here's what's brutal. If you bring it up, she'll likely deny it. She'll say you're overreacting, that it's all in your head. And maybe even she believes that too. But deep down, she knows. She knows she posts certain things for certain reactions. She knows she doesn't show you the full inbox. She knows whose attention makes her smirk. And she knows that those moments feel good, better than they should. You can't compete with that energy by being nicer, or more giving, or more patient, because it's not about you. It's about her needing to feel something outside of you. And until she faces that, no amount of love you give will be enough to anchor her. She'll chase stimulation over stability, ego over intimacy, eyes over effort. That's why this isn't about blaming her. It's about seeing the shift before it becomes betrayal. Because once she gets used to the dopamine, silence starts to feel like absence. Loyalty starts to feel boring. And your consistency becomes invisible. Not because she doesn't love you, but because the world outside feels more exciting than the one you built together. You don't lose her overnight. You lose her slowly. In the pauses. In the almosts. In the quiet erosion of effort that you don't notice right away, because she's still there technically. She still sleeps next to you. Still sends hearts in her texts. Still replies when you call. But her responses get shorter. Her tone gets flatter. Her mind feels somewhere else. And that somewhere else? It's where she feels more alive than she does next to you. What used to be closeness now feels like routine. And not because you stopped loving her, but because she stopped feeding the relationship. She started outsourcing emotional energy elsewhere, without physically leaving. And that's what makes it so confusing. You can't point to any single moment and say, that's when I lost her. Because you didn't. She's still here. Just not really here. You'll notice it in how she stops initiating. Stops asking about your day. Stops being curious. The connection feels one way. Not cold. Not hostile. Just tired. Like she's emotionally clocked out, but still showing up to work. And that kind of presence can be more painful than absence, because it tricks you into thinking there's still something to save. One man told me, she said she still loved me, but I felt more alone sleeping next to her than I ever did sleeping alone. That's the cost of emotional erosion. You don't even realize you're starving until the hunger turns into numbness. You stop fighting. Stop asking. Stop expressing needs, because deep down, you've accepted that she's not really listening. And the worst part? She may not even know she's doing it. She'll swear nothing's changed. She'll say she's just tired or busy. But in reality, her emotional bandwidth is already spent on the validation she's getting elsewhere. From posts, from messages, from the secret high of being wanted without commitment. And once her ego starts feeding from the outside, her loyalty begins fading from the inside. You can feel the gap growing. You try to close it. Maybe you plan a weekend away. Bring her flowers. Send her that long, thoughtful message late at night. And she'll say thank you. Maybe even cry. But it won't restore what's missing. Because it's not about the gesture, it's about where her emotional focus lives. And if that focus is split, your relationship is slowly bleeding out, no matter how many band-aids you apply. This is the stage where most men get stuck. They feel her slipping. They feel the silence growing. But they can't prove anything. So they gaslight themselves. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I'm just imagining things. And every time she gives them a small sign of affection, they use it as proof that everything is still okay. But deep down, they know it's not. Because true loyalty isn't about what she says, it's about what she invests. Her time, her attention, her emotional effort. And when those things start drifting towards strangers, followers, or men who don't know her like you do, you're not in a relationship anymore. You're in a performance. One she plays just well enough to keep you from leaving, but not deeply enough to make you feel chosen. So you stay, hoping it turns around, hoping she'll come back. But here's the truth. If someone starts feeding their emotional hunger outside the relationship, they won't stop unless something breaks, either the cycle or the connection. And too often, it's the connection. She won't say, "I'm ready to cheat." That thought rarely comes first. What has come first is the justification. The story she starts telling herself, quietly, deep down. A story that allows her to step further away from you, while still feeling like the good person she believes she is. It often sounds like this. "I'm not doing anything wrong. He doesn't give me what I need. I'm just being myself. It's harmless. Everyone flirts a little. If he really cared, he'd notice how distant I've been." She doesn't want to feel guilty, so she reframes the distance, rewrites the intimacy gap as your failure. Not because she hates you, but because she needs to protect her self-image. And the more she feels disconnected, the more this inner narrative grows stronger. At this stage, she becomes emotionally open to others. Not just curious, but receptive. She starts replying with more warmth, adding an extra emoji, holding eye contact a little longer. She might still say, "I'd never cheat," and she'll believe it. But belief doesn't stop behavior. Justification does. And now, when that one guy keeps messaging her, it doesn't feel wrong anymore. It feels exciting, deserved. Like maybe this is what she's been missing. She doesn't plan to meet him. Not yet. But in her mind, she already has. And that's where betrayal begins, not in bed, but in imagination. This is where emotional loyalty collapses. One man I worked with said it hit him when he found his girlfriend smiling at her phone in bed. She said it was nothing, just a meme. But later he saw the messages. The "haha, I miss this energy." The "you always get me." And then the coldest one, "I wish my boyfriend made me laugh like this." It shattered him, because she had told him every day that she loved him. But what she didn't tell him was that she was feeding her heart somewhere else. And that, sometimes, is even more painful than physical betrayal. Because it means you were physically present, emotionally replaced. When she enters this phase, she becomes harder to reach. You feel like no matter what you do, it doesn't land. You try deeper conversations, and she deflects. You try being playful, and she goes quiet. And you start to wonder if you're the one who's off. But you're not. You're just talking to someone who's already halfway out the door, while telling herself she's still inside. This stage is where many men start blaming themselves. They try harder, become nicer, give more space, buy gifts, say, "I love you" more often. But what they don't see is that they're pouring effort into someone who's emotionally connected elsewhere. And here's the hardest truth. Once a woman starts justifying emotional betrayal in her mind, you can't logic her back. Because she's not thinking with logic anymore. She's thinking with emotion, story, and ego. And every time you try to reason, she hears it as control. Every act of love you give gets reinterpreted as guilt-tripping or pressure. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because she's already shifting blame onto you to clear her own conscience. By the time it becomes physical, the relationship has already been dying for weeks, maybe months. And yet, that's when it finally hits you. The proof, the message, the moment you know she crossed the line. But what hurts most isn't what she did. It's how far gone she already was before it even happened. Because the truth is, the physical part is only the final step. The betrayal happened long before. It happened when she started hiding parts of her day. When she stopped sharing little wins with you. When she smiled more at a notification than at your compliments. When she began holding secrets in her phone like they were more sacred than your trust. Physical cheating is the explosion. But emotional cheating? That's the quiet fire that eats your home from the inside out. You don't see the damage until everything smells like smoke. And by then, it's too late. When a woman reaches this point, she doesn't just make a mistake. She takes a step that requires mental permission. And the only way she gives herself that permission is by rewriting who you are in her mind. He's not attentive anymore. He's too busy. He doesn't really understand me. We haven't been good for a while anyway. It's not really cheating if it didn't mean anything. She has to make you smaller in her story so she can feel less wrong in her actions. And the scariest part? Sometimes she can still be affectionate with you while doing it. There are men who sleep with women who have already slept with someone else that week. And those women still kiss them. Still say, "I love you." Still cook breakfast the next day. That's how scary dissociation can be when the emotional bridge has already burned. One guy I worked with, Jonas, said he didn't find out until months later. They were still having sex, still living together. But something in her energy felt distant. He brushed it off as stress, as hormones, as work, until the day she left her laptop open and the messages weren't even hidden. She wasn't ashamed. She just had moved on emotionally long before she moved her body. And when he confronted her, she cried. Said it wasn't serious. Said it wasn't love. But what she didn't say, and what he had to learn on his own, was that it didn't have to be. It was serious because she gave a piece of herself away that didn't come back. That's the tragedy of this phase. You're not fighting a man. You're not fighting a one-night mistake. You're fighting the fact that she stopped feeling accountable to you a long time ago. And no matter how good you are, how loyal, how loving, you can't rebuild loyalty in someone who has already redirected their emotional compass. You can forgive. You can talk. You can try to understand. But you'll always feel the scar. You'll always wonder who she really is when you're not around. Because once you've been lied to in silence, once you've shared a bed with someone whose mind was with someone else, you never sleep the same again. Not every woman who drifts away means to hurt you. Not every relationship that cracks needs to be burned to the ground. But here's the truth. The only way to save it is through honesty so deep, it stings. Because once she's emotionally disconnected, no gesture, no gift, no romantic weekend will bring her back. She doesn't need flowers. She needs friction. Not fights, but truth. Truth that disrupts her illusion. Truth that shatters the story she's been telling herself about who you are and who she's become. That's where most men fail. They either explode, yelling, accusing, breaking, or they shut down, go silent, hoping she'll find her way back on her own. But neither works. Because a woman who has emotionally detached doesn't return out of guilt. She only returns when something forces her to feel again. And sometimes, the only thing powerful enough to do that is your complete honesty. Not desperation, not manipulation, not begging, but calm, grounded truth. I feel you pulling away. I see you showing up everywhere except here. I don't want to police your attention, but I won't compete for it either. You're either in this with me fully, or you're already gone. Say it once, clearly, without anger, without drama, and mean it. Because sometimes, a woman only realizes what she's losing when she sees that she can. When she understands that the man in front of her isn't afraid to lose her, if keeping her means losing himself. It's in that moment she has to decide. Does she want comfort or connection? Does she want attention or intimacy? Does she want to be admired by the world or chosen by one man who truly sees her? And if she hesitates, if she gaslights, if she mocks or minimizes your clarity, then believe what she's showing you. Because some women don't come back. Not because you weren't enough, but because their ego needs more noise than love can offer. You deserve someone who chooses you in silence, not just in spotlight. Who flirts with you, not with attention. Who builds with you, not just bonds when bored. So if you ever feel it, that subtle drift, that growing gap, don't wait for proof. Don't wait for betrayal. Speak. Call it what it is. And if she leans in, if she meets you there, there's still hope. But if she turns away, let her go. Don't chase. Don't beg. Because the moment you fight to keep someone who already forgot how to fight for you, you've already lost twice. You don't control how someone loves you, but you do control what you accept in the name of love. And if a woman shows you, by her attention, her energy, her patterns, that her loyalty is drifting, then your job isn't to chase. It's to check in with yourself. Because love is not something you convince someone to feel. It's something you both choose over and over again. Most relationships don't end with a bang. They fade. They decay in silence. They die in the space between everything's fine and we stop trying. So be the man who notices early. Be the man who's not afraid to speak. But also be the man who's willing to walk, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Some women won't understand what they had until you're no longer there to remind them. And maybe, just maybe, you needed this lesson to stop trying to prove your worth and start protecting it. If you've ever lived through this, if any part of this hit something inside you, don't let it just sit. Drop your thoughts in the comments. There's more men going through this right now than you think. And if you want more of these conversations, the kind that go deeper than surface games, you know what to do. I'll be here. Until next time, stay sharp, stay whole, and never settle for half love.